Welcome to the Liquid Swan podcast. I'm your host, Liquid Swan. Today I'm interviewing the Harbinger, and the interview is brought to you by George Bagby at Tall Man Books. You can find all his wares on his links at the pinned comment in his profile. And his profile is at Tall Man Books. And you can find all his stuff there. Great deals, wholesale prices on forgotten history. And I will now introduce at Our New Culture. He is a German, and you can find him on Twitter at Our New Culture, at Our New, all one word, _ culture on Twitter. How are you doing?
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm doing good. I hope we're live this time.
Yeah, we forgot to hit the stream button before, and we had started we were probably about a minute in, which is kind of funny. Anyways, we'll get to the interview, and first, how about you tell us about yourself? Don't dox yourself, obviously, but
Yes. So, I'm a young person living in Germany, and for a couple of years now, I've been a watcher, observer of, let's say, the international internet right, dissident right, if you want to call it that, and also the German equivalent of that. So I've been kind of keeping tabs on what people are saying, trying to follow the smart people that want to influence politics in a smart direction and not in a more stupid direction. So yeah, I kind of watch The Longhouse a lot. You've been on there. I like to read Nomad's Substack, which is quite informative, and there are some German outlets that are doing pretty good work, I think. They all seem to have similar ideas, which is good. They all seem to want to move in the same direction, and I mean, sometimes we can get a little black-pilled, but in general, seeing people coalesce about what I believe are good ideas is pretty good to see.
That's interesting. Well, what do you do for a living over in Germany, roughly speaking?
So I'm in a technical field. Since I'm a German, I mean, I must be an engineer. So
there we go.
The stereotype there.
Nice. My job, we use a lot of there's sort of two sets of equipment. There's the Mexican set, and then there's the German built set. And the Mexican set never lasts. Everything craps out within I'm not saying all Mexicans, but the equipment is so different, so we kind of and it's because the employer tried to cheap out on buying stuff in from Mexico. But it's funny because the company doesn't even sell that stuff anymore, because the German stuff was just so much more competitive and actually does what you want it to do.
So you've got old stock of crap equipment that you need to use because it was cheap once.
Well, the German stuff's the older stuff, and and it's way older, and the Mexican stuff's probably built in 2010 era, and the Mexican stuff's from 2010 era, and it crapped out within the first 3 years, so we still kind of limp forward. And the German stuff, it's from the 60s, and it works great, 60s and 70s, but we were slowly having to get rid of it just because it's just so old and no longer conforms to the electrical code and stuff. But yeah, it's interesting how that still holds on to today. All right. And how did you first get involved with the Sensible Center? What was going on in Germany? I mean, I guess people know a lot, but what from your point of view?
So yeah, what do you know? What you need to know about Germany is psychological warfare is everywhere. So growing up here, it's not like you're allowed to flourish with your ideas how it used to be when we got all these poets and all these thinkers. They were allowed to just let their ideas out. But no, since the great happening of the 1940s, we've been psychologically dominated by our imperial overlords. those may be Britain, France, the USA, and Russia as well. So yeah, young people grow up to be default leftists here, and over the ages become more moderate, which ends up being barstool conservatism at the maximum. So
Would you say Bastille conservative?
no, barstool conservative, like
Barstool. Okay.
likes to say.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the absolute maximum. If like Tory level, GOP level conservatism is the most you used to get. The big event that kind of red pilled me was COVID. I was working in a public institution at that time, and we were one of the only ones that didn't close. We were allowed to be open, or we needed to be open. And I was working with this far leftist guy, like old leftist style. He was actually from the DDR. He grew up in East Germany, and just the way he didn't believe any headlines at all, just the way he didn't believe any politicians at all, like from the leftist side of it. But still, he was a dissident in that way, and that kind of made me think about things a little bit more. So I started out as a COVID skeptic and became generally disinterested in the liberal hive mind.
It is. It's still, like, to me, it's still kind of so strange, like, that they tried to force all that stuff on people. I'm just like, it still kind of blows my mind, and then they think they're like liberals and stuff. I mean, yeah, so much for, like, I mean, typical my body, my choice stuff, but suddenly, like, that logic changes completely when it comes to, like, experimental medicine.
Exactly. The way we've been conned on this, especially here, is so unbelievable, because you have a population that's generally well informed about medical issues. Like, we're not stupid people here. So it seemed to be a good starting point. Also, we're not like Italians or Mexicans that we kiss each other on the cheek with every other person we meet. So I believed at first that this would help us because we're kind of secluded people, but no. They did the lockdowns out of nowhere. I mean, we know where that came from. They all coordinated with WEF in the beginning of it, and later, like, you had a couple guys that were not believing it. You had like medical doctors on TV kind of being critics, but then they really dropped the hammer and like nothing was permitted anymore. And then it was harder and harder, like, for normal people to stand up against it. And this was fewer and fewer people. So then they could fat jacket them with like retarded conspiratard boomers. And this kind of threw the whole movement out of the way it was going, because you had such a small group at the end that were standing up against this. So you had to like inject only a couple of retards in there to fuck the whole thing up. And that was what's happened. And now you think it's politically dead in like the USA or Canada or UK. It's even more politically dead here. Like, it's so dead in the water. It's decomposing now.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So we will never get these criminals charged. This will never. I don't think it will come up in the next 10 years again.
Yeah, it seems like it really got swept under the rug. But a lot of people are still, like, I wouldn't say I'm seething angry about it, but I'm still pretty angry about what happened. Like, I want it would be nice if there's some form of justice, you know. Like, I would really appreciate that, but I mean, that's not going to happen. But yeah, whatever. What can we say? Oh, we have a hello from you're a fan of Nomad, and he's saying, "Hey, everybody!" So, good morning, Nomad. Yeah, great to see him. And we'll go back to the questions. Here we are. Oop, where am I? So I noticed that in the maps that show, like, the electoral maps ever that we get shown of Germany, the East is always like very unique.
Yes.
I'm assuming you're from the West. Is that,
yes.
Is that roughly? what do you think that is? That because they were formerly communist and they kind of get what's going on, or when the Western side is more permissive, or
It's
go into that?
exactly like you said, because they were under a oppressive government that was a lion government, like AA likes to say, foxes versus lions. That comes from Machiavelli. So the government there really showed their face, and they put their feet on the ground when it comes to establishing rules-based order. And in the West, it was more kind of liberal politics, and that's the first thing. So people know a oppressive regime when they see it, when they feel it. They know that media always lies. So that's kind of how they grew up there, because 1970s children are now kind of the most politically affluent people here. And in the West, you would have, like I said, more of a liberal political order that kind of allows everything. And we had the most money here. So we have the big companies are all in the West, and they build clusters, like the chemical cluster, mechanical engineering cluster, financial clusters developed. And so you had all this money pouring in, and West Germany was doing really well money-wise. So they could afford to have these retarded liberalist ideas without falling flat on their face like they should be. So that's kind of what's happening. And yeah, so the Russian occupation definitely left a mark on them, showing how like oppressive regimes are not really a good thing. They don't like that.
Makes sense. What part of Germany are you from? Are you more from like the north or the south? Like,
so I'm a beer drinking, Wurst eating southern German.
Is that Bavarian or?
Yeah, southern region. We all like beer and Wurst here. I'm not gonna specify the state, but yeah.
No,
I can see the Alps. When I look out the window.
Oh, very cool. That's very interesting. I think a lot of Germans move out to, or a lot of Germans that move to Canada apparently move to British Columbia, because Germans and Austrians and Swiss, because the mountains reminded them of home. And so we actually have a couple little like German towns or Swiss towns that look like they have like the sort of the architecture and stuff like that. It looks pretty cool. I think one's called Windermere, and then there's another one called Kimberley. Kimberley doesn't sound German, but my guess is that it had a German name before the war or something. A lot of cities like that.
That's always nice to see. When I look at pictures of New England, sometimes I think one of the more the places that are not on the coast, I think they sometimes look like Germany as well. So I think there's a reason like why real A10 blue-eyed Aryans move to those places, because it's kind of Urheimat vibes, if you get me. It's really nice. Canada's mountainsides are great, and Central America, so I mean Central USA, is also very cool. I'd love to visit, but I'm kind of scared to see all the Indians.
Oh, it's they don't go to the mountains because they just stay inside cities usually. Okay. Well, sometimes they'll go to like tourist places. Like, if you heard of Banff?
No.
Banff is like in Alberta, and it's very beautiful. They got like ski resorts and stuff, but people go there for like the mountain vistas and and skiing. And usually when you go there, it's not Indians, it's Chinese and Japanese. And last time I went there, it was like, well, there was Indians actually, but they were Sikhs, and it was just jam-packed, like absolutely jam-packed. I couldn't believe it. Like, I mean, this guess is good for tourism money, but damn, you couldn't find parking anywhere. Even when we tried to find parking, there would be like these Indian guys that wouldn't let you park. So we just sort of bullied our way in. But the entire like, if you Google like Lake Louise or Banff, Alberta, there'll be these like beautiful pictures and stuff.
Oh yes, Lake Louise, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine that, but like filled with Indians and like other South Americans,
Damn.
not just Mexicans, but like everywhere, like Ecuadorians. Those are those are South America. Mexicans aren't even South America. Never mind. Central Americans. But it was crazy. Like you couldn't do anything. Like you couldn't see anything. You could hardly even get a view of the water. It's just brown people. It's a sea of brown people. You know. But like
falling.
I mean, you do your best to make the best of things, but it's almost like Ant City, and they're all really short. Anyways,
of course. I'm so glad that we haven't been fully redeemed here yet. It's kind of my only hope for like our cities. They haven't been redeemed as of yet.
Yeah, hopefully keep it that way. I think they're probably a little nervous, maybe more nervous over there for some reason, which is a good thing. And like my mom was actually stationed over there. Not her, but my grandpa was stationed over there in like the 1960s. It was in a place called Hamer, which I think I was told was near Bonn or Frankfurt. It was near Frankfurt am Main.
Yeah.
So he was part of the Canadian Army, and I guess after the war they occupied. It's interesting though, and I got a question about that. In our sphere, at least in North America, we have been told that the German spirit's been sort of crushed. Is that true, or how true is it, if at all, in your opinion?
Yes, I would say to a large degree, it's unrecognizable to stories that you read about your own people, to paintings that hang in old houses, like how it used to be. I mean, some of this stuff is kind of romantically made up. You have to acknowledge these kind of romanticisms do exist, but absolutely. I mean, Boomer Truth, Ground Zero was here. It all started after. Well, you could say it started before the World War II, but it all started after World War II when it comes to like actual psychological domination. I mean, AA did great streams on CIA operatives when it comes to culture. They influenced our culture. They kind of forced jazz concerts in like war-torn, still deprived people. Like still the buildings are on the street destroyed, and they kind of go, "Here's jazz. Have you heard of Aretha Franklin? I'd like some bread, please. Thanks." No, I mean, it starts in education. Well, that's my first contact point. When I grew up, it's kind of seeing how teachers, professors, the civil service, if you want to call it like the English do, all this stuff is just inhabited by bio-Leninist idiots. So you kind of get churned out of this education factory, a libtard or even a full-blown leftist. And that's how it starts. But in general, when it comes to the spirit, I mean, we didn't. So Germany has this great cultural cringe when it comes to our European rivals, which are France and England, most of all. We lagged behind England when it came to industrialization, and we doubled our efforts and kind of catched up. Before that, it was cultural cringe of France, because they were kind of cool and hip and had all these fancy clothes and perfumes and these things. So we kind of always played catch up. I mean, France had great armies. There were great fighters, England as well. So these three powers kind of always try to copy each other or try to get ahead of each other. And that was the case. And that was, I think, one of the big drivers of industrialization, kind of try to keep up with the French military and try to keep up with the England industrial base. So that's kind of what industrialized Germany leading up to World War I. And then, of course, you had the war, which even during the war, it became clear that you need even more industry and even more armies, technical armies. And so we've been on that path for a while. But this commercialization and this Americanization of the German and the European in general is kind of really destructive to the soul. And you see it, of course, everywhere where a nation develops. You see people moving away from the land into the cities, where they cut off all their roots to their ancestral homelands and maybe even their family as well. So these things happen. It's people not caring for their ancestry because of Hitler or something. It's people not doing agriculture anymore. It's people doing fake email jobs instead of working real jobs, like being a good teacher. I think is something honorable, like caring for children, caring for the sick. All these kinds of things have been Americanized. So you get your US dollars and you buy the Netflix and you shut up about it, basically. I think it's the commercialization that did the most damage, especially in the West.
It's when I talk to Germans, like just random normie ones, they seem to be, I won't say they feel broken, but something always seems a little bit strange. Like they've seen some things that other Europeans maybe haven't seen. I'm talking more boomers or Gen X or the Germans, or young, or late Gen X, well, early Gen X, I guess. When I was flying through Germany to Sweden, I was sitting beside this German guy, which was strange. He wouldn't change seats, even though the plane was empty, and he was sat right beside me.
That sounds really familiar. Yes.
Yeah. But it didn't really matter because I had a good chat with him. But he was talking about, because he had a summer home or something like that in Småland, because in Sweden, I guess the prices are so low, he could either sell his house in Germany and get a flat, and then made a little house in Småland in Sweden, and it was cheap. And I was heading there because I did some ancestry research and I have some Swedish relatives, so I went and stayed with them. And he was talking about how like the Swedes are very strange, like sort of autistic, and I'll have to say, like I did notice that when I was in Småland, and not all Swedes are autistic, but it felt like it. Not my family, because they treat me like family, but the people in grocery stores and stuff, especially the younger people. It's like they didn't talk to a human before. I don't know what's up with that. But anyways, he's talking about the Swedes and how they plant trees in like perfect lines, like they're farming, except the farms like are 20 years, like it takes 20 years for the trees to grow, and they're very skinny trees. Anyway, it was strange. It was interesting to see his view on Sweden. But I mean, what's your view on Sweden as a German? I'm just kind of curious.
I don't really have any experience with Sweden, to be honest.
I
just know them because of their cultural exports. So I couldn't really comment on that.
Well,
we just know that there are beautiful people that speak English very well. That's kind of what's in the cultural zeitgeist here. What we know about Sweden, they're kind of our long lost brothers and sisters, if you want to go that far. Which I think I agree. I feel more kinship with kind of my idea of what a Swede is than some other European nations, I would say.
Yeah, it seems to make sense. In my limited experience with IRL Swedes and Germans, they seem somewhat similar, like cousins or something. I don't know. But IKEA is from Småland, and apparently the reason why they, how like the furniture is all like easy to break and stuff, and it's light. Well, it's because they had trees that were too small to like make good furniture out of a lot of the time. So they would like make the thin veneers, and then they would fill it with not sawdust, but like that.
Pressspannplatten. Yeah. I don't know the English word. It's pressed. Things.
Yeah, like compressed sawdust or whatever, and it made the furniture lighter, so it was easier to move around. That's a good thing, I guess, but it's kind of funny the reason why they did it. They had all this scrap stuff they couldn't get rid of otherwise. So back to that other question. Back to that question about the German spirit. Is like you mentioned. Is there a generational gap? Like where does it sit? Like so, like the boomers are here, Gen X is here in terms of that, and what would like could you go into the generational gaps there?
I think kind of this analogy that liberalism lasts for 3 generations is perfect, because that's exactly how I felt it. That's how I see it. I mean, after the war, these are still very respectable people that did a great job rebuilding Germany. I mean, of course, they were kind of going on the wrong direction with kind of setting up Germany as a America 2.0. But still, I mean, they did a great job. They built lots of houses out of the broken shambles that were left over after the war. They really built good products. I mean, think about the cars that came immediately after the war and conquered the world just by how cool they looked and how good they worked. We had great engineers from that period that really knew their stuff. And we have these machines running to this day, and they're kind of the backbone of our economy. I mean, if you walk into an old machine shop, you will see machines that are sometimes 50, 60, 70 years old, or even older. I mean, and they don't know what to do with them. They're just so good. I mean, I have a lot of respect for these kind of first generation after the war, or still kind of too young to still go into the war. So these really old people, because they still have true grit, and they still kind of worked for Germany in a way that a nation kind of fights for itself and understands itself as a nation. They kind of accepted what they're being imposed upon by the USA, but they kind of struggled on because they knew it would be best for their children. And then after that comes what we call boomer here. I mean, that's kind of a misnomer, because boomers kind of should be the generation before that, but our baby boom came in the 60s, so our baby boomers are a bit younger than the American ones. So and these people I despise with a passion, because they inherited from their parents this recreated Germany. They had lots of growth in the economy, cheap housing, good housing. They had still a nation that worked. They had trains that worked. They had still nature that was untouched. They had no Bomalians anywhere. I mean, they lived a good world. I mean, it was liberal, and you saw them doing music. And I hate these people because they were the first to really betray their country. I mean, these were the people that really fell for the CIA gay ops in a cultural sense, that abandoned their family businesses. You see so many family businesses going down because these are the first hippie generation that kind of were too busy fucking on birth control and doing rock and roll, living the American life in Germany instead of doing actual work. I mean, these people still work, but like not inheriting your father's butchery, or not building furniture, but like I said, doing these email jobs, or doing these stupid made-up jobs from the modern economy that don't really exist. And these are the same people that are now selling their houses and going on cruises, and they're voting leftist parties for more Bomalians here, and it's kind of a nightmare. These are the really despisable boomers that fall for every boomer truth lie that's been told ever. So
why do you think why do they keep voting for Bomalians? Like why is this what's up with the like urge for our governments to like have more brown people? I mean, aren't brown people happier in brown countries, honestly?
You know how Rishi Sunak is trying to save the Tories right now with a triple lock pension. You know, so the only thing that matters for this voting demographic is, are my monthly payments from the government going up or going down? These seniors, they are the most perfect client group of power that has ever existed. because they get their money from the government, and depending how they vote, they get more or less. But depending on how much they give, they get more votes or less. So from the parties, it's very easy to control them. And if you want to destroy the nation, you give the boomers money, and you fuck up the lives of the younger people. And that's exactly what CDU is doing. That's exactly what kind of the German Tories are doing. And this boomer vote is dying out, fortunately. But the only reason they vote for these things mainly is because they get more or less their payments, and it kind of keeps this fake economy going. Also, I mean, some of them really do fall for the BS. Some of them really do like foreigners. But I mean, all of them live in secluded areas anyway. They have their house somewhere. It's a nice house in a village somewhere, and they see like maybe one Indian, one Afghani, one Turk, like every couple of days, and they think, oh, they people, they're so nice. Like, can I eat a dinner sometimes? I don't know, because they're not feeling the consequences of their actions. They kind of keep voting for this shit, because they're still relying on all the luxuries that they inherited. They don't feel the consequence, so they keep voting for leftist bullshit, and they're being guilt tripped by the newspapers, which they still believe, and the TV that they still believe, into thinking that if they stand up for Germany, which they hate anyway, that they're of course far right. So if you want to do anything for the nation, then you're far right, and they really believe this because they've been just fucked up completely by psychological warfare since day one. But also they also chose this, so it's both.
Yeah, that it is strange. I mean, for the Americas, I mean, they have the same issues, but I mean, for me, it seems like the homeland. I don't want to say the homeland, but the origin of like European peoples, where like that's like where they came from, and they sort of have like a right to the land, right to the country, right to the culture, and to just sort of give away the family silver to strangers. It's just so destructive, and the fact that it's maybe it'll change after they're gone, or what do you think it'll get worse with when the millennials are sort of taking over?
I think it will get better, because when you have to project politics from what the youth are doing, and you have to look at what the youth are doing, and the boomers, they can do whatever they want, they will die out anyway. So if you think in long term, you have to see which political movement is engaging the youth most successfully, and there you have a twofold. It's a bifurcation at the moment. So you have the far left Greens, and you have kind of more the AfD dissident sphere, if you want to call it that. And these are the only two people that have any reach in the youth. I mean, of course, it's lamentable that there's still so many people kind of falling for the green BS, but on a certain level, I understand it. It's kind of, it preys upon like especially female predispositions psychologically, and so I kind of get it. But so these are the only two political futures for continental Europe, I think. And the other ones, they're just dead in the water. I mean, if you look at SPD, these are shown on electoral maps in red. So Socialist Party, kind of old school left, they've been completely outmaneuvered. They're so boring to anyone. Nobody will vote for them in 5 years' time. CDU, these are the Tories. We hate them. They call themselves conservative, but they're far left, as we know. Kind of they hold the carrot of monthly payments on a stick over the boomers, so they kind of get votes, but they are ghost votes, because in 10 years' time they won't exist anymore because they have no youth. So it's kind of Greens which have outmaneuvered the left with kind of more hot topics, kind of more, they're more science, which is cool. They're more Reddit, which used to be cool, I think. So they completely outmaneuvered the left, and these are the only people that engage the youth at all.
That's it makes sense. I kind of think, like, you know, based on like history, historical trends where we have these like left-right splits in the youth. I think whichever one sort of takes, like, if the AFD sort of takes power, I think they'll eventually. I think it'll sort of bring a lot of the, and if they do well, the green, other than the real weirdos, the real weirdos that are like gluing themselves to highways and stuff, they will move over to the AFD as well. I think it's just sort of like it has to hit like a cliff's edge and then just sort of tumbles over.
What we have is so the people that are on the AFD side, I think they have more conviction, they have more willpower. I mean, there are so many people that follow the Greens, and they go on these kind of demonstrations and kind of Greta Thunberg style show events for TV. But in the end, I don't know how much conviction there is. So these people are not very activated in a true sense of the word. Still, kind of the numbers speak for themselves. I mean, there was so much enthusiasm about the EU vote, but still it was not really that good of an achievement, because it was still kind of like 25% of the youth was voting AFD, and the other 75% are leftists. So I mean, it's still, the numbers speak for the establishment at the moment, but I think the great benefit that we have is that the AFD people, they're more convicted. They have more conviction. They're not convicted, I hope.
Well, they're driven by actual problems, and the Greens are driven by like an ideological fervor for something almost like a cult.
Exactly. So yes, the youth, I mean, they're more leftist than ever, but because the right is more energetic, this is what gives me a little bit of hope. Also, they're completely just rejecting kind of some of these liberal priors. I mean, it's so in these days to just kind of hate Israel on TikTok, that and not in a brown way. Don't get me wrong. Like in a certified white Christian way. These kind of pierced, blue-haired people here are hating on Israel, and it's not even that cringe. It's a little bit cringe because they're still doing it from the left, but it's not like Alhamdulillah, die for Palestine right now. So it's some of these priors are being deconstructed because they were bullshit from the start, but it's a slow process. So yes, the millennials and the Zoomers, they're not the savior generation, but on a long-term thing, it's going in the right direction.
Yeah, you can see that energy being redirected at some point towards like a more important cause, let's say, at least from my opinion. So what do you see as the path forwards for Germany and the West or the West in general? Do you see any way out, or do you think it's slowly happening? How far in the future do you think it would be?
So we have to acknowledge that there is only one political topic that has to unite everyone that kind of wants to save Europe, wants to save Germany. So specifically Germany, I mean, you can look at demographics here, and that kind of shows you how much work there's to do. These people have to get out, they have to go back. Still, there's no consensus on this. There are good people on our side that are pushing hard for this, that are making inroads with good memes, that are making inroads with interviews, that are reaching more people with this idea of just sending them back. And it's actually not that hard to do, and they're showing how cheap it would be, and they're showing how expensive migrants are, and that's reaching more people, because I mean the everyday reality is getting more dire by the day. So when you want to plot it on a graph, kind of, you see the line of just suffering is going up, and the line of immigrants is going up.
Yeah.
And the line of like potential for the future is going down. And like there's this crossover point where you reach the maximum people, because the maximum people are suffering. And still it's not too many migrants that you have to send back. We're not yet at this point. So there will be more Bormalians here, and there will be more suffering. But we have to kind of form a government we have to form a right-wing government before this kind of sweet spot. After that, it's kind of the South Africa solution for us. So Orania, kind of building enclaves. That's the only way to go. So having like based states where you can flee to, and the other ones are just
paused.
Turkey 2.0 or something. So yeah, we have to be fast. I mean, of course, knowing the political reality, it's kind of a slow process, but we have to do it before this point of immigrants that are too much, that are replacing us. Yeah, but still, we have to reach more people because not enough people are being hit in the face, to say it this way, by just migrant crime and how much the migrants are costing us.
Well, yeah. There's quite a bit of hope because a lot of the migrants moved to cities, and if you don't know about this, in medieval Italy, at some points, the majority of the population was actually Levantine, so they were like Lebanese and Syrian in the cities. And what happened was, cities are sort of like, as Ed Dutton says, what are they, genetic or IQ shredders? So
yeah, that's a Nick Land idea. Yeah.
Oh, okay, Nick Land. Yeah, so they move in the cities and they get eaten up, and they don't reproduce. And basically what happened was the Italians in the city, or in the villages, moved in and replaced them all. So there is hope because the dynamic is urban, rural. As long as the rural people keep reproducing, then you're fine.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think there's always hope. If there's hope, it lies in the proles, as George Orwell said.
Yeah, Steve Turley does have a point sometimes.
Next question for you is, as an old world, I see you as like an old worlder because you come from Europe and you weren't born in like North and South America. What's your generally thinking towards the New World, in terms of like Americans, Canadians, Mexicans, Brazilians even? What is like the thinking over there about the new worlders?
So the dominating ideology is liberalism in West Germany. This is changing, but it's still the dominant position. And the New World is generally seen as like liberalism, but in a more complete form. So America is seen as modern, is seen as prosperous, is seen as high tech, and that have a lot of chances for people that want to move up in the world. So lots of young people here after school, they want to visit the USA. Maybe they want to move to the USA. They see that there's a lot of money to be made, that there are interesting companies to work for, and they're kind of enthused by these they're like the shackles. So yeah, they like the USA because of the shackles, I would say. Canada is kind of seen as is not really appreciated as a nation. They kind of, okay, Canada does exist, we acknowledge this, but
we're like the Austria of...
They have mountains and ice hockey. They're like USA plus, like, yeah, exactly, like Austria. So of course we are like 40 years behind on this. This is like how it used to be in the 90s. We're not up to date on how the situation's changed on the ground. I mean, lots of developments have slowed down. I mean, working for American companies does not seem so great to me at the moment. And especially Canada. I mean, if you've not got a hut in the woods somewhere on a lakeside, I don't see how this would be enticing to anyone. I mean, yeah. So it's kind of the logical end point of liberalism, if it's positive or negative. But that's how the New World is seen. I mean, Mexico, yeah, this is kind of known for tourism and drugs, but we don't really think about these things. Brazil is kind of interesting as well, but mostly also because of tourism. But yeah, lots of young people like the USA because they kind of still believe in this idea that the USA is the most successful model of how you run a nation in the world. But yeah, it's kind of showing how that's not really the case.
It's interesting because like my view of Mexico, I've been there only one time on a vacation for like a week. Sort of like the British have Spain, we have Mexico, and and Cuba. Actually, a lot of Canadians go to Cuba, but I always think of Mexico as like extremely, really dangerous, like all the time, and I don't understand why people even go there anymore. Because like you could just get murdered, and there's no way to stop it. If you have some money, like they usually don't touch tourists, but sometimes they do. So, but a lot of Canadians own like property down there, and they go do their vacations and whatnot. But I prefer Brazil personally. Well, I don't know if you've read my Exodus thing. I plan to go to Brazil or South America, whatever. I don't know if I'll do that anymore, but it's Brazil's kind of weird because it's sort of like divided. So if you go to Rio or Sao Paulo, that's sort of like the border of where it changes. And if you go south of Sao Paulo and south, so Sao Paulo is kind of a little bit mixed, but they're pretty industrial. But as you go south, it becomes more German or more, more German. And then as you go north, it becomes more Congo.
Yes.
So, I mean, of course, Democratic Republic of the Congo or whatever. So it gets pretty dangerous as you go more north. Rio is sort of one of those cities that's just because it's such a cultural hub. It's like very, depending where you are in the city, it changes, right? Like obviously the favelas are going to be messed up.
Brazil is interesting for HBD purposes. No, but I think Brazil is much more suitable for European migrants than America, because like people there, from what I heard, is they're like openly racist, and it's not a problem because like everyone knows that the Latino Americans that are like 5 foot tall are just infinitely inferior to European settlers. And
Latrino.
So third world migration can be done right. I mean, what you said about the South is very much true. I think the most southern state is like punching way above its weight when it comes to GDP.
Yeah, per capita, definitely.
Yeah, especially that.
Rio Grande do Sul. It's lots of quite a few German communities there. I think it's like a large percentage of the population is actually German. They come from a certain area, sort of in the low mountains. I don't know what that is, but there was some sort of religious sect, I guess, that left in the 1800s or something. I have to look that up again. I've read about it before. But they have like I think it's the second biggest Oktoberfest in the world is in Santa Catarina, Blumenau. Yeah, either way. But there's a big German culture there. When you go there, it's not. The Latrino is sort of like they live more in the north. In the south, there's fewer Latrinos.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to see because like the beer there is very German too. At least in my experience, I don't know. I've only been to Germany a couple times. But every time I stayed in Frankfurt in 2022 for just a day because my plane got delayed, and it was really awesome. Everything was really expensive, I found, but it was really it was like living in the space age, compared to here.
Are you kidding? Come on, Frankfurt. It's like
yeah, I know
the worst city.
Oh, well,
you can
it wasn't.
talk about Berlin or Frankfurt, but that's the worst city to be in Germany.
It wasn't in like the main city area. It was sort of like near the airport, a couple miles out. But it was like living in the space age, like in terms of like the train stations and stuff, how everything like functions so well. Compared to here, we don't even have them. We don't even have trains. Like we had a train in my city up until I think 2009 or something, 2010, and then it just stopped. They just got rid of it. They just stopped using it. And now the train tracks that run it, like they've become crap, and you probably couldn't even put a train on them anymore. And the trains here only travel like maximum 60 kilometers an hour, so like no one would take the train because you could drive your car faster. I only went on the train one time, and the only thing I remember is the toilets emptied onto the track when you flushed. So which is kind of fucked up. And so what I do is like I'd get my brother to like go in the front, like take a piss, and then I would like try to see where it landed by looking out the window in the back. That's all I did. The train, it was so boring. Yeah, but I only did that one time, and it was like you could drive to a place in an hour, and it took like 2.5 hours to get there on the train. I remember being like wanting to shoot myself in the head just because in Minecraft, because like I had this it was allergy season, and I had like a antihistamine, and it just like I was basically a zombie, so I wasn't even enjoying like looking out the window at the nice trees and stuff like that. It was just like it was complete hell. Then I went to England, and their trains were actually kind of like in between. So our trains are like super archaic, and in England it was sort of like kind of a mix, sort of in between. Probably I don't know what the era they're from. If ours are from the 80s, and I guess the British ones are probably from the 90s, and the German ones felt like they were from the 2050s.
So the English once again got there first, and now they're the worst when it comes to trains. I am of the opinion that trains are extremely based. I like riding trains.
Oh yeah, no, I do. If you're,
some of our English friends hold this opinion as well. No, but it seemed that you were very lucky with your stay, because I mean, first of all, Frankfurt is just extremely ugly, and second of all, the trains rarely do run on time, and we are in desperate need of someone to change that. The trains need to be on time. Very much so.
No, for sure. Here we just don't. I looked up how much it costs to take a train from Vancouver to Edmonton, and I can't remember if it was Vancouver to Edmonton or Edmonton to Toronto or something like that, or Winnipeg. But it's something like if you took the first class train, it'd be $29,000. This is not too long ago, maybe a year ago. I looked that up, and like the idea of spending $30,000 to take a luxury. No, it's not even that luxurious. You get a room with a bed, and that's it, and it's like $30,000. It's unbelievable. But that's because you're actually traveling overland, right? Through the Rocky Mountains and stuff. It's like
this personnel just has to take care of you for so much longer. So in a flight, it's much more quickly, and the personnel have to be there for like 8 hours or something. When a train, it's like a day or two, so it's more than triple the wage that they have to get. Also because it's uninterrupted, so that's a big driver of cost for trains. It's just the personnel is so much more expensive.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, in England, they could travel. Well, England wasn't a great example because sometimes the prices would be like £4, and then the next day it'd be like £200 for like the same trip. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Like, there's no
it's privatized.
Yeah, there's no price stability. So I thought like, and also there was a strike at the time, so they were kind of becoming what do you call it? Unreliable. So I ended up just flying everywhere because it was just easier, and I knew I'd be able to get to where I had to go. But yeah, Germany, my experience there was like Germany and even Sweden, which I didn't expect to have like a really good train system, was way better than the Canadian one, and I'd say better than the British one. Yeah, it was it's interesting. Is Dalmati Air common in Germany? Do you know about Dalmati Air?
No, haven't heard of it.
There seemed to be some sort of subsidiary of Lufthansa, I think. But actually, I got a question about Lufthansa. Was that around after the war or before?
Lufthansa?
Yeah.
I don't know about which year it was founded, but it was only relevant after the war, and it's kind of a something that Germany used to be proud of, and because they were kind of a good airline and tried to be a good image for Germany, trying to project that we're a functional country and all this. Recently, they got bought up by the state because they kind of failed during COVID.
They didn't survive, and the state. Oh, that's crazy! I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I wouldn't recommend Lufthansa anymore because they completely changed now. They're I don't know which percentage, but majority owned by the state, and so far this has kind of not been good for Lufthansa. They kind of slash prices where they can, like from the company point of view. So it's gotten worse, kind of.
I kind of when I was there. So when I was 17, I went to Russia and I went through Frankfurt and stuff, and we took a Lufthansa, and this was probably 2005, and it was interesting because they had this they, I don't even know how to describe it because I can't find it, but there was like, the safety guy, like they say, like there's like a safety video and there's like a guy like I don't know, trying to tell you how to put a life jacket on.
Yep.
And stuff like that. It was like animated, but it was like the first I don't even know how to describe it. It was like almost like 1980s levels of video 3D animation, and like the guy that the character they had putting on the life jacket and stuff, he'd straight up look like a psychopath, like someone that never like talked to a human or looked at a human being at all in his whole life. I got like this weird uncanny valley feeling, and like I can't find it anywhere, but it was the Lufthansa sort of safety dude, and he would like the video you could like flip through your screen between like, I think the map where it showed you where you were during the flight, and in that video just on loop and I was on the plane for like 10 hours, so I definitely watched this video quite a while in between like a dream, being awake and being asleep. So I had this sort of like living nightmare flight from I think it was Frankfurt to Moscow, and I think it was like 5 hours or something, and I still remember, like it's so I was only 17, but like this video playing over and over again. I mean, I wish I could find it, but it was so funny.
Given the safety instructions.
And
you've been hypnotized by safety vest manufacturers.
Yeah. But yeah, it was very. He put the seatbelt on, and it kept giving examples of like him doing it wrong. And I just remember it being like, it was almost like, when you're in a dream and you're being chased and your feet are like stuck in sand, or they're not really in sand, but it feels like they're stuck in sand. Like you're trying to run away from the murderer, and you can't like move because you're paralyzed because you're sleeping, right? That's what it sort of felt like. But like this safety guy, like frustratingly trying to put his seatbelt on and stuff like that, just kind of was a little bit crazy. And it was when I went to Russia too. There was a lot of people had German soaps and stuff. I guess maybe not anymore, but a lot of the stuff that was in like the apartment, I remember, was like manufactured in Germany. But I only noticed because it was like the only things that were in Latin script. Everything else was in Cyrillic. I could read the Cyrillic, but I just didn't know what it said.
I need to boom a post immediately. So what you said about the Latin script reminded me of something that boomers really like to say, and they think they're the most funny people on earth. So our script is Latin and our numbers are Arabic, and this is why we need infinity Baumalians, because like we don't even have German scripture, it's Latin scripture, and our numbers aren't even German, they're Arabic. So this is why we need more Baumalians. This is honestly what some boomers post on Facebook, these kinds of retarded things. And then of course the food part. So because you eat döner, this means that you need some more Middle Easterners here as well.
Yeah, we can't just take the recipes, we have to take all the...
Exactly, we've got the recipes.
Yeah. What was that? The Black Adder, I think they said. Like, well, now that we got the recipes, we can send them all back. Maybe it was a different show. But it was that same actor. Well, hey, we're coming up on the time now. Do we have any last words? No, just kidding. Do you have anything else you'd like to talk about just before we go?
Yeah, what I want listeners to know, if they're wondering about what's going on with the AfD, so quick update. They did well on the EU election. They got percentages. They grew in numbers, and they don't seem to be touched by the scandals all that much. We're coming up on a general election in this fall, and they're trying to prepare themselves for that. And generally, yes, they will get more votes, and it will surely help to steer the country in the right direction. But what's happening, which is not really good, is someone who's been outspoken for remigration, but in a sensible way that reached a lot of people, is being is trying to be the party is trying to oust him, or some people in the party. So what's happening now is kind of pivotal and will decide what happens in fall and what happens in Germany in the next coming years, because the AfD now needs to decide internally what they want to do, if they want to stay like boomer conservators, or if they actually want to move the needle, and how they react to this situation, and also how they form coalitions with French parties will decide how they move on. So because of course there's some of these more people that want to seem sensible, they're actually shutting down the people that want to do something. And this has been happening from the start, but it's now coming back again as a topic, because some of these people, I mean, they're always there. There are always these grifters that just kind of are in it for themselves. You cannot avoid this, but we have to be careful that they don't outmaneuver us people that want to move the needle. And they're big fans of Maximilian Krah. So if you watch the headlines, look for this name, Maximilian Krah. He's our guy. And they kind of want to oust him, but of course the base is responding, and they're putting pressure on the AfD leadership to go in this direction instead of the conservator direction, and because the conservators will never achieve anything, we know this.
That's very very interesting. I just want to go through some comments here just so we can say hi to some guys. Retronus, I'm sorry to hear about your mother in the hospital. Hope she's doing okay. Hope you're okay. Best wishes for everyone. Mike, this is a dose of truth. Mike, good morning from Florida. Okay, apparently the music was distracting. I had it on really low, but maybe people don't. I don't have to put it on.
I couldn't really hear it.
Yeah, I couldn't hear it to the very end, but it was like very quiet. It kind of comes in and out slowly, like there's like a wave. But yeah, it's is what it is, I suppose. So maybe I won't do it next time. Yeah, so best wishes to Retronus and his mother. Yeah, I guess that's basically the show. Thanks for coming, Harbinger. It's been a great conversation. It's great to learn about Germany, and it's great to have a different point of view. Yeah, well, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having me on. And yeah, I will be expecting your new articles. I will be expecting Nomad's new articles, and also read Concrete magazine. I hear there's a new one coming out soon.
Yeah, it should be coming out beginning of the month. Also I have a book out. You can find it on my Twitter if someone's looking for it. It's just basically my essays from my Substack, which you can read for free if you go to Substack. So, which Harbinger has been, obviously. And well, thank you for coming today, guys. I'll chat with you later. Stay on Harbinger. I'll talk to you in just a sec here. So everyone, take care.